People photographed 3 masts sticking out of the sea off a Kent beach. Under them, 1,400 tons of unexploded bombs and a no-fly zone overhead. Here's why nobody can move it. The wreck is the SS Richard Montgomery, an American cargo ship that ran aground here in August 1944 and has never moved since. She sits about 1.5 miles off Sheerness on the Isle of Sheppey in roughly 15 meters of water, shallow enough that at every state of the tide, all 3 of her masts stand above the surface. Not at low tide, always. Roughly half her cargo is still aboard, around 1,400 tons of high explosive, sitting in flooded holds, corroding for 82 years. She is one of the most closely watched objects in Britain. There is a permanent exclusion zone around her, monitored by radar and by eye. Since 2025, there has also been a restriction on flying, with aircraft and drones kept out below 13,000 feet. And the official position on all of it, for 8 decades, has been to leave her exactly where she is. To understand why, you need to know how she got there. Richard Montgomery was a Liberty ship, one of the mass-produced freighters the United States built in their thousands to keep the war supplied. In the summer of 1944, she crossed the Atlantic loaded with munitions, bound for Cherbourg, which had just fallen back into Allied hands. She stopped in the Thames Estuary to join a convoy, and here the story turns on something very ordinary, a parking space. The harbor master assigned her a berth off the North sandbank. The estuary is shallow and treacherous, a maze of sand that shifts with the tide, and the berth he gave her put a heavily loaded ship in water that at low tide was barely deeper than she was. On the 20th of August, she dragged her anchor. Other ships saw it happening and sounded their sirens to raise the alarm. Nobody aboard responded. The chief officer did not wake the captain, a failure he was later unable to explain. By morning, she was hard aground on the sandbank, her back already under strain. 5 days later, on the 25th, the hull broke in 2. The Board of Inquiry did not blame the weather. It concluded the anchorage she had been assigned had put the ship in jeopardy. The captain was back on full duty within a week. They did try to empty her. A Rochester stevedore company started unloading on the 23rd of August, using the ship's own cargo gear, working against the tide. They got roughly half of it off before she broke, and the forward holds flooded. Then they stopped, and what was left in the water is still there. The remaining cargo includes 2,000-pound bombs, nearly 2,300 cases of fragmentation bomb clusters, explosive booster charges, smoke bombs, including white phosphorus, and pyrotechnic signals. None of it was designed to sit in salt water for the better part of a century. All of it has been doing exactly that. The casings corrode, the explosive inside changes as it ages, and nobody can say with confidence what condition any individual item is in, because nobody can safely go and look. And that is nearly literal. She has been surveyed regularly since 1965, but the work is mostly done at arm's length, using high-resolution sonar and imaging, scanning the hull from a distance. The last time divers went down onto the wreck was 2003. Every few years, another survey produces another set of pictures of the same rusting steel, and another report reaching roughly the same conclusion. She is sitting in about 15 meters of water, leaning to starboard, and she is not moving much. Leave her alone. So, the obvious question, what happens if it all goes at once? The assessment that gets quoted is blunt. A column of water and debris roughly 300 meters across, thrown close to 3,000 meters into the air, a wave around 5 meters high, and almost every window in Sheerness broken. Sheerness is a town of about 13,000 people. It is 1.5 miles away, and the windows matter more than they sound. Because in blasts like that, the injuries tend not to come from the explosion itself. They come from flying glass. She also sits on the approach to the Port of London, so traffic has to be routed around her. Now, and this matters, the authorities do not think she's likely to go off. Successive surveys have put the likelihood somewhere between low and moderate, and the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency's own position is that the risk of a major explosion is remote. Hold both of those things at once, though. They believe the risk is remote, and they will still not go anywhere near it, which brings us to the part most people find genuinely hard to accept. They know exactly what is down there. They know roughly what it would do, and they still will not take it out. There is a reason for that, and it happened 40 miles away. In 1946, a Polish cargo ship called the Kielce sank in the English Channel off Folkestone. She was also carrying munitions. In July 1967, a team began preliminary work to clear her. During that work, the Kielce went off. They had not reached the main job yet. This was the preparation. The explosion registered as an earthquake, magnitude 4.5. It dug a crater about 6 meters deep into the seabed. Onshore, it brought what was described at the time as panic and chaos to Folkestone. Nobody was hurt. Now hold the two wrecks side by side, because this is the whole argument. The Kielce was 3 or 4 miles from land. Richard Montgomery is 1.5 miles. The Kielce was in deeper water. Richard Montgomery is in the shallows. And the Kielce was carrying, by comparison, just a fraction of the explosive. Every variable that made the Kielce the easier wreck, the Montgomery reverses. They attempted the smaller job further out in deeper water, and it detonated on them. That is the answer to the question everybody asks. Nobody moves the Richard Montgomery because the last time Britain tried this on an easier wreck, the wreck won. Every few decades, somebody reopens the file. The options have barely changed. Do nothing. Bury her in sand, encase her in concrete, or go in and take the cargo out, which would mean building an artificial sandbank around the wreck first. Doing nothing keeps winning. Not because it is good, but because everything else involves disturbing her. But there is a problem with doing nothing, and it is the masts. They have been standing in salt water since 1944, and they are failing. The concern is specific and unpleasant. If a mast collapses onto the wreck, the impact could set off what is underneath, so the masts have to come down. That was decided years ago. Getting it done is another matter. A plan to remove them was announced in December 2021 to start in June 2022. It was delayed a year. In 2023, unidentified objects were found on the seabed around the wreck, and the operation was judged too dangerous. Delayed again. In December 2023, surveyors found the masts had degraded further than expected and rescheduled for March 2024. In April 2024, 18 metallic objects were found near the wreck. Delayed again. In May 2025, the government closed the airspace above her, and in April 2026, a contract worth £9.5 million was finally signed, driven this time by a new worry, that a wreck this exposed is vulnerable to a drone or to deliberate sabotage. The work is due to begin in early September. Go back over that timeline for a second. 5 years of planning, surveys, contracts, and postponements to take down 3 metal poles. Not the bombs, the poles above them. That is the measure of how carefully anybody will go near this wreck. So within weeks, the mast will be gone, cut down below the waterline. The bombs will not. 1,400 tons of them stay exactly where they have been since 1944, the same distance from the same town, under the same water. The only thing that changes is that you will not be able to see it anymore. The masts themselves are being kept. They go to the historic dockyard at Chatham to be preserved and then put on display somewhere in Kent as a piece of maritime heritage. So this is how it ends. The wreck becomes a museum piece on shore and an unmarked stretch of water offshore, which is the question I will leave you with. Once the masts come down, that patch of sea looks like any other. Is a hazard you cannot see safer, or is it just easier to forget? Tell me below, and if you want the next one of these, it is already in the water.